Now let's look at theme 2 of the preamble. And we will talk about the nature of the Indian state. And what is the nature of the Indian state? Sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic. Nature number 1, sovereign. What do we mean by sovereignty? As a sovereign country, India can make laws, India can unmake laws. India can take a decision, India may revoke a decision without any dictation by a foreign country. For example, there's a war between Russia and Ukraine. There is enormous pressure in India that you should stop buying oil or natural gas from Russia. Despite that, we are buying oil and natural gas from Russia. Why? Because we are sovereign. We can take a decision. We can unmake a decision without any dictation, without any threat from a foreign country. We are sovereign to make laws. We are sovereign to unmake laws. We are sovereign to take decisions. For example, S. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister of the Government of India, he was speaking to media, to the press. And media person asked question to S. Jaishankar, the Honorable Minister, why are you buying oil and natural gas from Russia? He made a beautiful statement. He said, yes, we are buying natural gas and oil from Russia consistent with our energy security. But if you're asking, why are you buying oil and natural gas from Russia? Maybe you should also ask the European countries. The amount of oil and natural gas that we buy from Russia every month is less than the amount of oil and natural gas that the European countries are buying from Russia in one afternoon, in less than a day. That means India is a sovereign country. We can make a decision, we can unmake a decision, we can make laws, we can unmake laws without any interference by any other country. This is the nature of the Indian state. Prior to our independence, prior to our constitution, we were not sovereign. Because who was taking decisions on our behalf? An alien government sitting in London. The Queen of England was making decisions on our behalf. The Queen of England was taking decision through her appointee, the Governor General of India. So we were not sovereign. But once the constitution was enacted, we became sovereign. That means now we can make laws. We can unmake laws. We can take decisions. We can revoke decisions without any interference by any other country. We passed farm laws, then we revoked farm laws as well, without any interference by a foreign country. Despite the fact what Canada may have to say on these farm laws, what United States may have to say on these farm laws, we still pass them, later we revoke them as well, because we are sovereign. Sovereignty means the ability of our state to take a decision, to make a decision, to unmake a decision without any interference by a foreign country. That's sovereignty. So nature number 1 of the Indian state is that we shall be sovereign. Nature number 2, democratic. It is possible that a country may be sovereign. A country or a state may be sovereign, but despite that, it may not be democratic. For example, there are monarchies. For example, there are dictatorship regimes. For example, there is a dictator in North Korea. Is he not sovereign? Yes, he is. There is monarchy in Saudi Arabia. Does that mean they are not sovereign? They are sovereign. They can take a decision. They may unmake a decision without any interference by a foreign country. So sovereignty does not mean that you should be democratic as well. Sovereignty can be there, and at the same time you can be a dictatorship regime. You may be monarchy as well. But our nature, the nature of the Indian state is we should be sovereign, and at the same time we should be democratic. What is democracy? The oft repeated definition of democracy given by Abraham Lincoln: the government by the people, of the people, for the people. We elect our representatives every 5 years. And we entrust these representatives, these legislators, that you make laws on our behalf, that you govern us. You don't rule over us, because in a democracy there are no rulers. We elect our servants. So Prime Minister is the servant of the people of this country. The ministers, the legislators are the servants of the people of this country. They serve us. They don't rule over us. So the second nature of the Indian state is we will be democratic. We won't be a monarchy. We won't be a dictator regime. We will be democratic. And this is something that Supreme Court has said in R.C. Podyal versus Union of India 1994. The Supreme Court has said that democracy denotes people's power and equal participation of all citizens in the polity. People were happy with the UPA 1 government headed by Dr. Manmohan Singh. And that is why Dr. Manmohan Singh was voted back to power in 2009. But then people were not happy. That is why people exercised power over the polity, removed Dr. Manmohan Singh, and in came Mr. Modi as the Prime Minister of this country in 2014. People's power. 2019, people were still happy with Mr. Modi, and the people of this country exercised power and re-elected Mr. Modi as the Prime Minister of this country. That means nature 1 is sovereign. Nature 2 is democratic. We will be democratic. We won't be a monarchy. We won't be a dictatorship regime. We will be democratic. We will be a democratic state where people will have control over who serves them, who governs them. If people are not happy with a government, they can vote out that government. If people are happy with the performance, with the working of that government, the people are going to vote this government back to power. Democracy. Equal participation of the people. That means every citizen, regardless of your religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, regardless of your educational background, regardless of your financial condition, regardless of your salary, regardless of your ideology, every citizen has an equal right in this democratic participation. What is this? This is democratic, and this is one nature of Indian state. Sovereign, democratic, and at the same time, republic. What do we mean by republic nature of Indian state? Who is the head of the state in India? The President of India. President is the head of the state. This president, is he holding a position because of his lineage? Is he holding this position because of his hereditary? No. The head of the state is an elected individual. The head of the state is elected. The head of the state is not a hereditary position. That is why we say Britain. Is Britain a democracy? Yes, it is. Is Britain a sovereign state? Yes, it is. But is Britain a republic? No. Why? Because the head of the state of Britain is not elected by the people. Queen is holding that position because of her heredity. Which means Britain is also known as constitutional monarchy. In Britain, they have a constitution, although that is an unwritten constitution. Nevertheless, they follow the constitution. But they are not republic, because the head of the state is not an elected individual. That is why we call Britain is a constitutional monarchy. But India is a constitutional republic. Why? Because the head of the state is elected by the people. Republic means something else as well. This position, the head of the state, is open to all without any discrimination. If you are a citizen of India, you have completed 35 years of age. No matter what is your race, what is your sex, what is the language that you speak, what is the region that you come from, what is your caste, what is your religion, doesn't matter. You are a citizen of India, you have completed 35 years of age, you are qualified to contest election to the office of the President of India. This is what? This is the republic nature of Indian state. Our state will be sovereign. Our state will be democratic. Our state will be republic. Republic means head of the state is an elected position. Head of the state is not a hereditary position. And this position of the head of the state is open to all, is open for all, regardless of your race, religion, caste, sex, place of birth, educational qualification, doesn't matter. This is the republic nature of Indian state, and we will always remain republic. These were the three natures which were mentioned in the original constitution. That is why, but the year was 1976. 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act was passed. Srimati Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister. Preamble was amended. And 3 words were added to the preamble. Which were these 3 words? Socialist, secular, and integrity of the nation. These 3 phrases were added to the preamble when the preamble was amended in the year 1976, 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, when the nation was in a state of emergency. Emergency was imposed in this country in 1975. And we will discuss this national emergency when we will discuss the emergency provisions of the Constitution. But here, when the nation was in a state of emergency in 1976, Constitution was amended by 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, and 3 words were added to the preamble, or 3 phrases were added to the preamble. Secular, socialist, and integrity of were added to the preamble. Let's discuss what is socialism. Socialism, as you would know, is an ideology. And this ideology is attributed to the writings of Karl Marx and his friend Friedrich Engels. They wrote something which is known as the Communist Manifesto. And there they talk about something called socialism and communism. Let's briefly understand what do we mean by socialism and communism. For that, let me briefly take you to the writings of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. They say that there is a cyclical nature of history. History goes through various cycles. And then in this cycle, history will end at some point. There will come a time where the history will rest. And that time is communism. What does Karl Marx say? Karl Marx says that the history began with primitive communism. In this primitive communism, which Karl Marx says was a beautiful society, equalitarian society, egalitarian society, where there was no difference between person 1 and person 2. There was no disparity. There was complete equality. There was no private property as well. When we say there was no private property, that means this is a piece of land. This piece of land is communal land. And don't take this word negatively. Communal land in the sense this land is owned by the entire group of people, by the entire community. Nobody is the owner of this piece of land. Nobody is the holder of this piece of land. Everybody is the owner. Whatever you sow on this soil, whatever is produced, all the crops which are produced, they're equally distributed amongst the people. That means there was a beautiful society when the history started. A beautiful equalitarian society. A beautiful egalitarian society. Where there were no rich and no poor. Where there were no haves and have-nots. A beautiful equalitarian, egalitarian society. But then Karl Marx says this society got destroyed. And this society then degenerated into ancient society. And once this primitive communism got destroyed and ancient society emerged, from this point, 2 classes of people emerged. Haves, have-nots. Who were these 2 classes of people in ancient society? Masters and slaves. Masters were haves, slaves have-nots. Basically means these were the people who controlled everything, and these were the people who were discriminated against, who were subjugated. This ancient society also got replaced by feudal society. How did the society change? We don't have to get into that because that's the domain of sociology. If you are a student of sociology as an optional, you will have to discuss in great detail what led to the transition of a society from primitive communism to ancient society, then to feudal society. Very briefly here, according to Karl Marx, whenever technology changes, whenever means of production changes, society changes. So technology changes, means of production changes, society changes. That's what Karl Marx says. But we don't have to get too much into detail because that's the domain of sociology. Here, just keep in mind that Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, they're talking about societies. They're talking about the cyclical nature of history. They say that history began with primitive communism, a beautiful classless society where there are no classes, there are no haves, there are no have-nots. And when this society got destroyed, we entered into another kind of society called ancient society. And this is where the classes emerged. Haves, have-nots, two classes of people. This ancient society also got destroyed. And then what emerged? Feudal society. Haves, have-nots. In feudal society, who are the haves? Landlords. Those who controlled lands. And who are the have-nots? Serfs. Who are working on these lands. I'm an agricultural laborer. I don't own this land, but I work on this land. I sow the seeds. I sow the crops. But whatever profit is delivered, that profit is delivered to the landlords, not to the serfs. So basically classes, haves, have-nots, landlords, serfs. And even this feudal society got changed. And this feudal society then led to the emergence of another kind of society called capitalist society. And as I told you, that according to Karl Marx, whenever there is a change in the means of production, whenever technology changes, society changes. So after the feudal society, industrial revolution started in England. That means technology changed. Machines were invented. And when machines were invented, technology changed, means of production changed, emerged capitalist society. And this capitalist society is also a class-based society where there are two classes of people. In capitalist society, either we have bourgeois or we have proletariat. Karl Marx, he saw the ill effects of capitalism from very close quarters. He saw that workers in the factories in the Europe, they were working for 18 hours a day, yet they're not paid enough wages. They're working in inhuman conditions, without any medical insurance, without any support, hire and fire policy, workers are hired, then they are fired. They're working in subhuman conditions, inhuman conditions. But who gets the profit? Bourgeois. Who are these bourgeois? The capitalist class, those who are the owners of these industries and factories. And who gets the profit? The bourgeois. And who is generating this profit? Proletariat. But they are not getting the profit. They're just getting salary. And at the same time, they're working in inhuman conditions. Karl Marx saw this inhuman treatment of workers in these factories from very close quarters, and he gave a slogan. All the workers of the world, unite. Unite so that we overthrow this capitalist system. This capitalist system is exploitative. This capitalist system is a threat to the people. And this capitalist system should be overthrown. And for that, we need a revolution. That's why the cry, all the workers of the world, unite. Let's have a revolution and let's overthrow this exploitative capitalist system. And once we overthrow this capitalist system, we will enter into a socialist state. Karl Marx was very against this capitalist state, and for a variety of reasons. Karl Marx says that in this capitalist society, workers are paid wages, and once these wages are paid, you get a sense that these workers are owned by the capitalist class. But the profits are not shared. Profits are pocketed by the capitalist class, by the bourgeois. The real profit is pocketed by these bourgeois. And the poor working class, they get nothing. Karl Marx also said that these workers are alienated from their produce, alienated from their product, alienated from the fellow worker as well. Alienated from fellow worker because I'm a worker of a factory. Here is another worker. Then there is another worker. We are not allowed to talk to each other. Because if we talk to each other, the production will take a hit. And there is a manager who is keeping an eye. Don't talk to each other because production will take a hit. So I am alienated from my fellow worker. I am just focusing on my job, producing some goods, producing some shirts, producing some goods. I am alienated from the fellow worker. And I am alienated from the produce as well, from the product as well. How am I alienated from the product? Karl Marx says that there is a division of labor in capitalism. Division of labor in the sense, you're working in a factory which is manufacturing a car. Let's say this is a Volkswagen company. You're manufacturing a Volkswagen car. But there is a division of labor. One set of employees, workers will work on the engine. Other set of workers will work on, let's say, the interiors. Another set of workers will work on, let's say, the tires. Although these manufacturing companies, they buy tires from other companies, they don't manufacture themselves. But let's assume for a while that Volkswagen is also manufacturing tires. So one set of workers focusing on the engine, other set of workers focusing on the interior, other set of workers focusing on the steel, another set of workers focusing on the nut bolts, another set of workers focusing on, let's say, the tires. And once a Volkswagen car is manufactured, you, me, and all the workers, what do we see? We see a fully manufactured car. But what is our contribution to the manufacturing of this car? We can't see that. Because we can't see inside of the engine. We can't see inside of the interior. Because some people may have worked on the infotainment system. Some people may have worked on, let's say, nut bolts. Some people would have worked on the air conditioning system. We are alienated from the product because this is not our product. I don't see what is my contribution to this product. This was one objection of capitalism raised by Karl Marx. Karl Marx said that in a capitalist society, workers are alienated from the fellow workers. Workers are alienated from their produce as well, from their product as well. And this alienation must end. And for that, workers of the world, unite. Let's have a revolution and let's overthrow this capitalist system. And once we overthrow this capitalist system, we will enter into a socialist state. And in this socialist state, the government will have a bigger responsibility. And what is this responsibility? In capitalist state, bourgeois, who are few in number, they control the entire money. They control the entire system. And what do the workers get? Peanuts, just salary. So there is a vast disparity. There is a wide gulf between the rich and the poor. And this wide gulf is widening day by day. So what do we need? We need to abolish private property. Who says this? Karl Marx. And in socialist state, private property will be abolished. There will be no private property. Then what is the responsibility of the government? What is the responsibility of the state? The state will have to ensure that whatever profit is there, whatever money is there, whatever revenue is there, that is equally distributed amongst the people. Slowly and steadily, the government will take some time to ensure that this wide gulf between the rich and the poor is minimized. This is socialism. where there is no private property, where the gulf between rich and the poor is getting minimized day by day. And once this socialism matures, we will go back to primitive communism. And that is what Karl Marx says. After socialism, we will have communism, where the history will rest. Because I told you, Karl Marx talked about cyclical nature of history. That first there is primitive communism, then ancient society, then feudal society, then capitalist society, then socialist society. And in a cycle, we will go back to where we started. We started with primitive communism, and the history will end there. And this end of the history is known as communism, where there are no classes at all. And it is at this state that the government will wither away. Listen to me carefully. Karl Marx says that once the history will enter into communism, then we don't need the government. Because the job of the government is in a socialist state. The job of the government is to minimize this gulf between rich and the poor. And once this gulf is minimized, then we will have no classes. Then we will have no haves and have-nots. Then we don't need this government. Then this government will wither away. That's what Mahatma Gandhi also said. Mahatma Gandhi's concept of Ram Rajya is a stateless society. The concept of communism of Karl Marx is a stateless society where there is no government. But look at me now carefully. Our constitution, which talks about sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. Our constitution, which talks about democracy. Our constitution, which talks about government. Can the same Indian constitution, which on one hand talks about state, which on one hand talks about government, can the same constitution also talk about a stateless entity? Can also talk about a state where there is no government? So how do we reconcile with this phrase socialism, which is mentioned in the preamble, that one of the nature of the Indian state is that we should be sovereign socialist? Does that mean we are socialist so that there is no private property? Does that mean we are socialist so that there will come a time where the state will wither away, where the government will disappear? Is this socialism that our constitution talks about? Indira Gandhi was the prime minister. She was asked, Madam Gandhi, what is your definition of socialism? Because socialism means that there is no private property. Socialism means that there will come a state where socialism matures. And when this socialism matures, communism will start. The government will wither away. The government will disappear. The state will disappear. It will be like people's rule again. It will be now back to primitive communism, where there are no haves, have-nots. There are no bourgeois and proletariat. There are no masters and slaves. There are no lords and serfs. There is no private property. Everybody is equal. Indira Gandhi said, we have our own brand of socialism. She was asked, Madam Gandhi, what is your own brand of socialism? She did not elaborate. But then constitutional experts, they say socialism which is mentioned in the preamble is not the Marxian socialism, because Marx was against private property. Marx was against the idea of a state as well, that there will come a time when the state will disappear, state will wither away. Constitutional experts say that our preamble is basically a mix of Fabian's socialism and Gandhian socialism. What is Fabian socialism? Fabian socialism is a school of sociology in London, in United Kingdom. What do they believe in? They say, yes, we need a revolution so that the exploitative practices of capitalism should be nullified. Because yes, capitalism, according to them, it creates a situation where there is a widening gulf between the rich and the poor. And we need to end this exploitative system. And to end this exploitative system, we may need a revolution, but this revolution may not be bloody. This revolution may not be bloodthirsty. This revolution may be aided by the government. That means we should have a government which should take steps to ensure that the standard of living of the people increases. The nutritional standard of the people increases. Government should ensure jobs to the people so that this gulf between rich and the poor is minimized. Fabia socialism basically means that if the final objective, if the final goal of socialism is to create a classless society, for that we may not necessarily need a bloody revolution. This emergence of a classless society can be engineered by a government which works for the welfare of all, for the welfare of everybody. So if the goal of socialism is to create a classless society, this classless society can be created, can be aided by the welfare programs of the government. So we need government to keep a check on the ugly wealth of the rich. We need a government to uplift the weaker sections of the society, the downtrodden sections of the society, the marginalized sections of the society, so that the gulf between rich and the poor is minimized. That is why constitutional experts say, when we talk about socialist or socialism in Indian context, that doesn't mean there will be no private property. Private property is allowed. Socialism means Fabia socialism, which means the government of the day will have a role to ensure that this gulf between rich and the poor is minimized. The government will have a role to uplift the downtrodden and weaker sections of the society. And that's what our government did. When there was a lockdown because of COVID-19 pandemic, what did the government do? The government provided free ration to the people. What did the government do? Ask the banks that you have to provide collateral-free loans to the street vendors, to the MSME sector. What is our government doing? Or what the successive governments have been trying to do? Providing insurance to the people, providing free medical aid, providing free medical care to the people, providing free vaccination to the people. So we need government to keep a check so that the gulf between the rich and the poor is minimized. This Fabia socialism, which is basically Gandhian socialism as well, where Mahatma Gandhi believed that we need to ensure that the standard of living of the people increases. We need to ensure that those who are from weaker sections of the society should also be uplifted. We need governments to implement social change in our society. And that is what socialism is in Indian context. Long story short, Preamble tells us, or we can break down Preamble into 4 themes. One is, we the people. What does this signify? What is the source of the authority of Indian Constitution? And what is the source? The people of this country. The 4th theme is, date of adoption. The date on which the Constitution was adopted. 26th November 1949. But the Constitution was enacted. It entered into force on 26th January 1950. Why? Lahore Declaration of Indian National Congress in 1929, where the Congress party thundered and said the goal of Indian National Congress is Purna Swaraj, complete independence. Then what about 2 other themes? Theme number 2, what is the nature of the Indian state? And what is the nature? Sovereign. We understood that. Democratic. We understood that. Republic. We understood that. Socialist. What do we mean by socialism? To understand socialism, we need to go through the writings of Karl Marx and his friend Friedrich Engels. They write the Communist Manifesto. They say that there is a cyclical nature of history. History started with primitive communism, and then the society got changed and we entered into ancient society. And from there onwards, classes emerged. Haves, have-nots. Whenever means of production change, whenever technology changes, society also changes. So ancient society changed into feudal society. Feudal society changed into capitalist society, and this capitalist society is exploitative. It exploits the workers, it alienates the workers, it creates a gulf between rich and the poor, and this exploitative capitalist society should be overthrown. And for that we need a revolution. That is why Karl Marx said, all the workers of the world, unite. Let's have a revolution and overthrow this capitalist system. That's why Karl Marx was against religion as well. Karl Marx said religion is like an opium. Religion is like an opium. If people believe in religion, they will not believe in revolution. Why? Karl Marx gave an example. Karl Marx said that there is a hymn in Christianity which says, it is easy for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle. There is a needle which is used for stitching purposes, and at the top of this needle there is the head of the needle. Karl Marx says, according to Christianity, it is easy for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle. It's almost impossible, right? But it is possible for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle than for a rich man to enter the heaven. Which means rich person can never enter heaven. So if I believe in religion, it's like an opium for me. It's opiating my mind. I say, okay, rich people have Mercedes cars, Audis. They have the big fat checks. They have wealth, ugly wealth. They have enormous amount of money in their bank accounts, Swiss bank accounts. They deal with cryptocurrencies as well. Let them enjoy this life. Because in the next life, only we can enter the heaven. They will rot in the hell. So why revolt? Why participate in the revolution? Because we are here for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years of our time. After that, we all will die. We all have to taste the death. And then we will enter the heaven. They will rot in the hell. Karl Marx said, religion is used to opiate the minds of the people. Religion is like the opium. That is why for revolution to happen, religion must be destroyed. Religion must be discarded. That's why Karl Marx was against religion as well. Because religion is used to opiate the masses. But then Karl Marx says that this capitalism, this capitalist society, which is very exploitative, people will revolt, workers will revolt and overthrow this capitalist system. And then we will enter into socialism. In this socialism, what will happen? The government will take a call. The government will have a very important role. And what is the role of the government? The government will abolish all private property, will take the ownership of the entire property and will start equally distributing it to the people. So that this gulf between rich and the poor is minimized, and once there is complete equality established, where there is no difference between rich and the poor, where there are no classes, there is no bourgeois, there is no proletariat. When this situation arises, when this state emerges, this state is communism. Cyclic in nature. That means the history will rest, eternal rest at communism. And then we don't need the state, we don't need the government. The government will wither away. Because the role of the government was to minimize the gulf between rich and the poor. Now once it is done, we don't need the government. The government is overthrown. The government withers away. Does that mean it is this socialism which was talked about by our preamble? That there will come a time where the government will wither away? That there will be no private property? No. Supreme Court and the various constitutional experts, they say socialism in India does not mean there will be no private property, because there is private property. Socialism does not mean that the government will wither away. Socialism, which is mentioned in the preamble, is a Fabian socialism, or a mix of Fabian socialism and Gandhian socialism. And what does that mean? That means we need government. We don't need revolution. We don't need a bloody revolution to overthrow the capitalist system. We don't need a bloody revolution to minimize the gulf between rich and the poor. We need this government to ensure to implement various welfare schemes for the weaker sections of the society, for the marginalized communities, for the downtrodden sections of the society, to uplift them from the poverty so that they are also able to have good quality life, so that their standard of living is enhanced, so that for them healthcare is a priority, education is a priority, jobs are a priority, work is a priority. And for that we need the government. That is why Supreme Court said in DS Nakara versus Union of India 1983, Supreme Court said, what does socialist indicate in our preamble? This term socialist indicates the philosophy of socialism, which means that we will have to eradicate, we will have to eliminate the inequality that is present in our society. And this inequality is income-wise as well, standard of living wise as well, status as well. Standard of living of different sections of the people different in India. Income is different. Status is different. This is where inequality lies. And we need to ensure that state will take a proactive role and will work towards eliminating all these different kinds of inequalities, whether based on standard of living, whether based on income, whether based on status. And this is socialism, which is mentioned in the preamble. Socialism does not mean that there is no private property. Socialism does not mean that there will come a state where the government will wither away, where the state will disappear. No, this is socialism. And the final nature of Indian state is secular. What do we mean by secularism? Again, any term which ends with ISM is an ideology. And any term which ends with TION is a process. Secularism is an ideology. Communism is an ideology. Communalism is an ideology. Secularization is a process. Globalization is a process. Communalization is a process. But what is secularism as an ideology? State will have no official religion. Secularism as a concept, it means that the state will not have its official religion. And this is remarkable. Look at our neighbors. One neighbor is Pakistan. It's an Islamic state of Pakistan. Another neighbor is Bangladesh. Their Islam is a state religion. Another neighbor is Myanmar, where one sect of Buddhism is a state religion. So in our neighborhood, we have countries where they promote one religion as the official religion, as the state religion. But India is secular. The year was 1947. The country was partitioned. India was partitioned into India and Pakistan, unfortunately, on the grounds of religion. A theory was given by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan. He said, and he believed in two-nation theory. He said Hindus and Muslims are two separate people with different ideologies, different aspirations. They cannot stay together. They cannot be welded into one nation. We need a separate country for Muslims. For that, he got the country divided and a state was created for Muslims, Pakistan. But the founders of Indian Constitution, the founders of Indian Republic, they did not want a religion to be given an official status in India. They believed in secularism, where no religion will be given the status of the official religion. There shall be no discrimination on the grounds of religion. No matter what your religion is, you will be given equal opportunities in public employment. No matter what your religion is, you will not be discriminated against. No matter what your religion is, you will not be subjected to any kind of discrimination in this country. So secularism in India is one, State will not have any religion of its own. India will not be an Islamic state or a Hindu Rashtra or a Khalistani state or a Buddhist state. No. But whatever you do inside the four walls of your home, you are free to practice your religion. You practice your religion, we will not discriminate. Let every citizen of this country practices his or her religion, we will not discriminate. But state will not have any religion of its own. And we will not discriminate as a state. We will not discriminate against our citizens on the grounds of religion. That's secularism in India, which is remarkable considering, look at our neighbors, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, where they are promoting one religion as the state religion. The year was 1976. This word secular was added to the preamble. But does that mean India became secular in 1976? Or was India secular even before 1976? India was secular even before 1976. How do we say this? Article 14, which we will discuss in Fundamental Rights chapter. It says equality before law and equal protection of the laws. No discrimination whatsoever. The law will treat everybody equally. That means no discrimination on the grounds of religion. When there is no discrimination on the grounds of religion, we believe in secularism. Article 14 was present right from 1950. That means in 1950, we were secular. Article 25, which we will discuss again in Fundamental Rights chapter. Every individual in India have the fundamental right of freedom of conscience and freedom to profess, practice, and propagate your faith. You propagate your faith. You practice your faith. Whether you are a Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Christian, Jew, Parsi, Jain, Buddhist, no matter which religion you belong to, you have the fundamental right to practice your religion. We are not saying only one religious group will be allowed to practice his or her religion. Everybody is free to practice his religion or her religion, which means we were secular. And this Article 25 was present right from 1950. Article 27. Nobody will be forced to pay a tax which will be used for the promotion of any one particular religion. That means people of this country will not be imposed taxes, so that through these taxes we can construct temples in India. Through these taxes we can construct mosques in India, or gurdwaras in India, or churches in India, or fire temples in India. No, this cannot happen. So that means no religious-based taxes can be imposed in India, which means what? We are secular. But what was implicit till 1976? Implicit? Implicit in Article 14, implicit in Article 25, implicit in Article 27 was the secular nature of Indian polity. But what was implicit became explicit in 1976 when the Constitution was amended, when the preamble was amended, when the word secular was added to the preamble. So we were always secular. But we only made this concept, this ideology, secularism, explicit in 1976. Secularism in India is positive secularism. Positive secularism in the sense that the state can provide you subsidy so that you can go to Kailash Mansavar Yatra. The state provides subsidies or scholarships to girl child belonging to the minorities. This is positive secularism. That means we are equally promoting all religions, protecting all religions, not discriminating against any religion, and at the same time the state will not have any religion of its own, no official religion. That is secularism. So we have discussed three themes of preamble. One, we the people, source of authority of the Constitution. Second, 26 January 1950, 26 November 1949. Date of enactment, date of adoption. And we discussed theme number 2, which is the nature of Indian state: sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic. And I will draw your attention to one very fascinating piece of information. Look at the slide. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. What do you notice? You notice these phrases, sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, are in capital letters. And at the same time, there is no comma separating sovereign from socialist, socialist from secular, secular from democratic, democratic from republic. What does that mean? That means this phrase forms an integrated whole. All these are one. All these are necessary for the idea of Indian state to work, for the idea of Indian state to ensure its permanence. Which means you can't remove one. You remove one, you lose the entire essence. So you can't remove secular. You can't remove socialist. You can't remove republic. You can't remove sovereign. You can't remove democratic. All these are to be seen as one integrated whole. Sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. This is one phrase. That's why they are in capital. That is why there is no comma separating the two. Treat this as one integrated whole, one block. And all these have meanings when they are held together. We are a state which is sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. All of them are to be seen as one integrated whole.